pandemic that's cost about 67,000 people their lives, and how African Americans disproportionately in many large cities make up a disproportionate amount of people who are dying. He didn't talk about the fact that you have now 4.5 million African Americans who are unemployed, 4.5 million unemployed in 6 weeks. At the time he made the statement, it was probably maybe about 3.5 million. Okay. He didn't talk about the fact that you have less African Americans with healthcare now than when President Obama left office, because Donald Trump's Attorney General, William Barr, is in court right now trying to repeal the entire Affordable Health Care Act. He didn't talk about how Trump has reversed almost 200 policies that the Obama administration had in place. Largely, these policies were beneficial to African Americans. The reversal of them is detrimental. He didn't mention any policies, nothing like that. So the whole argument, I just find it very, very interesting. Disturbing and interesting at the same time. If you go back and watch last week's broadcast, and it's on our Facebook fan page, The African History Network, and my YouTube channel, Michael Imhotep, and we're broadcasting on our Facebook fan page, The African History Network, The African History Network. How's everybody doing? Everybody share this broadcast on your social media platforms. Invite your friends to tune in also. We've got a jam-packed show for you tonight. Don't want to miss any of this. We have, we have, how I used to say, we have a lot of information to cover, not a lot of time to do it in, and we have 1 moment to lose, right? Okay. So Roland Martin on Roland Martin Unfiltered, we share his broadcast on our Facebook fan page each day, Monday through Friday. He deconstructed Diddy's argument, and everybody wants results and things like this, right? If you go back and watch the broadcast I did last week, in the last segment, it was about 1 hour and 15 minutes. I compared Mike Bloomberg's policies pertaining to the African-American community to Bernie Sanders' policies to Joe Biden's policies. Okay. And I break this down, and we look at policies. We also look at, I also deal with history as well. Okay. And I give you a number of articles to reference dealing with history, dealing with law, dealing with the crime bill, all different types of things like this. Okay. So go watch that. So that came from, some of that information came from the extensive article that theroot.com did. And it was written by Michael Harriot. And what they did was they put together a policy matrix, and they got policy experts together. They put together a team of policy experts, legal scholars, and political pundits, all of whom were African-American, to help devise a policy matrix. And I said, that's the first time I've ever seen anything like that done, right? So I cited some of the information they talked about in that document, and then dealt with a lot of history as well. At the time that this document came out, February 28th, 2020, Joe Biden did not have an African-American platform or policies specifically targeting the African-American community. Okay. And I checked his website, because I looked at the websites of all the candidates. I checked his website in early March, and it was not there. I checked again this past week after I did last Sunday's show, and it's been updated. There's an African-American platform. There's also a Hispanic platform as well. Okay. So check that out. None of these are endorsements, but I'm dealing with information. Okay. So check that out at joebiden.com. All right. And we talked about this last week. We looked at the different policies and broke them down and how they would impact the African-American community. Okay. So, go back and watch last week's show. All right. Now, also, this past week, we see more information has come out regarding the allegations against Joe Biden. There was a really good article. MSNBC has been doing some good coverage on this. There was a really good article that they have from May 2nd, 2020. Biden accuser Tara Reade, quote, not sure, end quote, what complaint she claims was filed with Senate with Senate says. Biden accuser Tara Reade not sure what complaint she claims was filed with Senate. Tara Reade has said the complaint, if it is found, would not include the sexual assault allegation she came forward with in March. Okay, we'll talk about this a little bit. Hey, look, I ain't gonna spend a whole lot of time on this. I'm telling you, they covered this on MSNBC. There's so many turns, changes in the stories, things like this. So we'll talk about this a little bit. I'm not gonna only have 2 hours here. I ain't gonna spend a whole lot of time on this, and I've got some other topics to deal with. All right, but she was supposed to do an interview on Sunday on Fox News. That was canceled due to security concerns, and she's trying to get the security team together and things like this. Okay, but there's some elements of the story that have changed from when she originally came out. I think it was March of 2019, and said made allegations of sexual harassment. Then this year it changes to sexual assault. So okay, all right. I'm just sitting back watching this and say, okay. So we'll deal a little bit with that. But a couple weeks ago, I talked about the miniseries on Netflix, Self-Made, that's inspired by the life of Madam C.J. Walker. Okay, now once again, all the historical purists, most of them are not historians. All the historical purists and say, oh, the same thing with Harriet, right? They made up characters and this is wrong, and Comcast this and all this. Now the other movies from subsidiaries of Comcast, things like this that have come out since then, you see they haven't said nothing about that, right? Just notice that, okay? Just notice that the other okay, we got to go to commercial breaks. All right, are we on commercial break already? JT, are we on commercial break? We're at the 17. JT, you there? Hold on. We're broadcasting on 9:10 a.m. the Superstation WFDF. Are we on commercial break? Seems a little early for the break. JT, let me know. Let me see. Maybe you can't hear me. I don't think we're on commercial break yet. But anyway, what I said was going to happen when all these people putting out stuff attacking the movie Harriet and not really focusing on the history and how to teach history to our people. Now that being that people were going to see the movie, how do we take this to the next level and really teach our people the real history of Harriet? You saw the interview. You saw the interview I did with historian Jamon Jordan, fellow historian Jamon Jordan. Okay, and shout out to Jamon because he lost his mother to coronavirus. I talked to him briefly in the past couple of weeks here. So Self-Made is very interesting. It's a 4-part series. It's inspired by the life of Madam C.J. Walker, and it's loosely based on the book. It's inspired by the book On Her Own Ground, which was written by A'Lelia Bundos. A'Lelia Bundos is the great-great-granddaughter of Madam C.J. Walker. I've talked to A'Lelia. We're Facebook friends, so I've talked to her a couple of times in the past because I've dealt with Madam C.J. Walker in my lecture series, Great African Women in History, The Mothers of Civilization. I'm going to reach out to A'Lelia to set up an interview with her as well. But I finally, this past week, I finally watched all 4 installments of Self-Made. So we're going to talk about that in the second hour. I took like 4 pages of notes on this. That's how, when I watch movies like that, okay, that's how I do that. I take notes, okay, because I'm a historian and I'm a teacher. So that's what I do. All right, we're coming up on a break. You listen to the African History Network show right here on 9:10 a.m. the Superstation of Future Radio. I'm your host, Brother Michael Imhotep. It is Sunday, May 3rd, 2020. We'll be back in a few minutes. Deputy Director for Infectious Diseases at CDC. Okay, let's see here. That's the commercial break. Let's put this on. All right, how's everybody doing today? Stand by, we're on commercial break. All right, stand by, everybody. We're on commercial break. Hey, you listen to the African History Network show right here on 9:10 a.m. the Superstation, the Future Radio. I'm your host, Brother Michael Imhotep. It is Sunday, May 3rd, 2020, and we are live. Okay, so hey, if you want to advertise with the African History Network, email us at customerservice@africanhistorynetwork.com, customerservice@africanhistorynetwork.com, and we'll let you know how you can advertise with the African History Network. Okay, sageandelmapothecary.com offers unique products for people who live a plant-based life or want to support a plant-based company. Sageandelmapothecary.com has over 60 different beautifully handcrafted soaps, natural toothpaste, hydrating oils, deodorants, face masks, shampoos, conditioners, and so much more. Visit their website, sageandelmapothecary.com, APOTHECARY.com, to order their products, find out about upcoming events and pop-up shops. Also, use the promo code AHN Spring 20, AHN Spring 20, to get 20% off your order. Okay, and let them know you found out about this from the African History Network. Okay, so even though people aren't traveling right now, you know you will be traveling soon, and you want to buy travel accessories. BlackLionLeather.com is a very unique African-American owned company because they offer unique leather travel accessories. They manufacture and sell online to the culturally inspired African-American traveler. Their tagline is carry your culture, carry your culture. They are 100% African-American owned and operated. Visit their website today, BlackLionLeather.com, BlackLionLeather.com, and carry your culture with you. Welcome back to the African History Network show right here on 9:10 a.m. the Superstation, the Future Radio. Yeah, I'm your host, Brother Michael Imhotep. It is Sunday, May 3rd, 2020, and we are live. We're broadcasting on 9:10 a.m. the Superstation, WFDF, and also our Facebook fan page, The African History Network, The African History Network, and we should be on 9:10 a.m. Superstation's Facebook page also. You know, usually on Sundays, I'm in the studios of 9:10 a.m. the Superstation, but because of the stay-at-home order from Governor Gretchen Whitmer, who has been, you've seen on national TV a lot, the hosts are broadcasting from home. Okay, and with me, I have a studio in my home already because I used to do nationally syndicated radio and broadcast from home. So this works out pretty well for me. I'm just saying, you know, this works out pretty well for me. Okay, all right. So the calling number is 313-778-7600, 313-778-7600. If you have a question or comment, let me do, let's see here. We're going to get into an update on what's going on with coronavirus. But first, on the African History Network, we focus on educating, empowering, and inspiring people of African descent throughout the diaspora and around the world, because right knowledge corrects your own behavior. What you do for yourself, what you do to yourself, and what you allow other people to do to you and get away with is based upon what you think about yourself. What you think about yourself is based upon what you have been taught about yourself. What you've been taught about yourself is based upon everything you've read, heard, and seen about yourself. So when you control the radius of a man's thoughts, you can control the circumference of his actions, because the mind can't do or teach what it doesn't know. Now, we deal with a number of different topics here on the show. We deal with current events and history and politics, education, economic empowerment, entrepreneurship, love, sex, health issues, and much, much more. Sign up for our email newsletter. Text the word Kemet, K-E-M-E-T. Text the word Kemet, K-E-M-E-T, to 22828 to sign up for our email newsletter. Also visit our website, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com, right on the homepage. And you can sign up for the email newsletter there as well. Okay. Normally I would tell you where I'm going to be speaking, you know, in the next month or so, but hell if I know. Everything's been canceled. I had a whole schedule for the entire year set up. Don't know what's going on with that now. All right. But you know, Queen Thais from the Liberated Minds Black Homeschool and Education Expo, she did contact me this past week. I need to call her back. I was supposed to call her back. We know that I think it's what is it, the 9th annual Liberated Minds Black Homeschooling Education Expo is coming up 3rd weekend in July, I think it is, but it's all going to be online. So you'll hear more about that. But a lot of this other stuff that's planned, I don't know what's happening with that. Okay. We'll have to find out, right? And then we see that a lot of states that have Republican governors are opening up very quickly. And I think that's going to backfire on them as well. Okay. We're going to see what happens with that. All right. So nearly half of the U.S. will reopen in some form beginning this coming week. About a dozen states tentatively returned to public life this past Friday, the first mass reopening of businesses since the coronavirus pandemic brought America to a standstill 6 weeks ago. Now, more restrictions are expected to loosen this coming Monday, which would be Monday, May 5th. At the same time, portions of the country, including much of the West Coast and the Northeast, remain shuttered, causing clashes over how, when, and whether to reopen these various states. Protesters gathered in the capitals of Kentucky, Oregon, and Florida following other demonstrations this past week in Illinois, California, and Michigan. Okay, now NBCnews.com has a really good piece dealing with the states that are reopening. Okay, now many of you saw what took place in the state of Michigan, in the capital, Lansing, Michigan. This past week, you had hundreds of protesters up there with guns. They didn't have like Glocks. I mean, they didn't have like 40 caliber Glocks. They're out there with assault rifles. Most of these white men, well, let's just be honest, right? This is some of the dumbest ass stuff I've ever seen. Okay. But Governor Gretchen Whitmer is trying to save lives. You're going to take your ignorant behind out there with your gun. Why are you taking your gun out there? They storm the Capitol, go inside the building, the building. Now, you know what had happened if they were black, right? First of all, they wouldn't even let them on the premises if they were black. I mean, let's just be honest. Then a lot of them weren't wearing face masks. A lot of them weren't wearing facial coverings. Okay. Some of the ones that were probably trying to hide their identity. Okay. I wonder if some of them are going to lose their jobs behind this. Yeah, you protesting. Why are you out there with guns? Why are you intimidating elected officials? What do you think had happened if black men were on the Capitol grounds trying to intimidate elected officials? So this is white privilege. This is a combination of white privilege and gross stupidity. Because some of these geniuses are going to get coronavirus. And for some of them, it ain't going to turn out too well for them. I'm just telling you right now, that's what's going to happen. A lot of these guys look like they don't even wash their hands when they go to the bathroom. So some of them, it ain't going to turn out too well for them. Okay. And I told you so. Hey, they shouldn't take your ass up there in the first place. Detroit Free Press reported, what was this, May 1st, 2020. Whitmer orders Michigan theaters, bars to remain closed until May 28th. Whitmer orders Michigan theaters, bars to remain closed until May 28th. Governor Gretchen Whitmer, governor of Michigan, has ordered theaters, restaurants, bars, casinos, gyms, and other places of accommodation to remain shuttered until May 28th amid the novel coronavirus pandemic. They remain limited to carry out and delivery orders only. They remain limited to carry out and delivery orders only. The order also continues the closure through May 28th, 2020 of all non-essential personal care services that require individuals to be within 6 feet of each other, including hair and nail salons, barbershops, and tanning, massage, spa, tattoo, and piercing services. The order does not apply to personal services that are medically necessary. The executive order issued this past Thursday extends the executive order issued Thursday extends one set to expire, and came as the governor also extended a state of emergency without approval from the Republican-controlled legislature. The state of emergency was set to expire Thursday night. Now, Governor Gretchen Whitmer and the legislature are at war over her legal authority to now enforce emergency orders. The legislature plans to take the governor to court. Okay. And they took her to court. The court ruled in her favor also, by the way. Okay. Protesters, some armed, also expressed their opposition to the state of emergency Thursday at the state capitol. Let's see, Detroit Free Press has an article dealing with that as well. We'll pull it up. Capitol protesters urge an end to Michigan state of emergency. Capitol protesters urge an end to Michigan's state of emergency. And what Governor Gretchen Whitmer said when these geniuses were out there the week before, and they're doing this now, your actions like that, because some of these fools are going to get coronavirus. They're going to be asymptomatic. Take it to their grandparents, something like that, and kill them, right? Your actions could very well cause an extension of the state of emergency, an extension of the stay-at-home order, because it will lead to a rise in the spread of coronavirus. And I'm still trying to figure out why you're all out there with guns. This wasn't a Second Amendment rally. And then genius, dumbass Donald Trump, he's encouraging them. He tweeted, "Liberate Michigan." He's encouraging them. Now, all the black people that say elections don't matter who you vote for, things like this, right? When have you seen a sitting president encourage people to do nonsense like this? When have you seen a sitting president to encourage? I'm not talking about like Woodrow Wilson in 1914 or 1915. I'm talking, like in recent history. When have you seen a sitting president? That's irresponsible. What do you think will happen if Donald Trump gets reelected to the second term? What will he encourage these geniuses to do then? 313-778-7600 is the call-in number if you have a question or comment. Read this article from the Detroit Free Press. Freep.com is the official website of the Detroit Free Press. Capitol protesters urge an end to Michigan's state of emergency. Now, also, I saw people posting pictures, the African-American women standing outside of hair supply stores, and they're saying, "Oh, why are they going? They should be at home," things like this. It's not an emergency. Look, some people may not like me saying this, but have you seen some of these sisters' hair? Maybe it is an emergency. I'm just saying, okay, if you're wearing, if you, I'm, hey, if you wear, now you want to wear a mask and, things like that and be 6 feet apart or more, what have you. I'm not going to beat up on them. Now, if you're trying to buy blonde wigs and all this stuff, then, we need to have a conversation. But if you're trying to do maintenance, because there are problems that can occur when you don't properly take care of your hair, right? Health problems that can occur when you don't properly take care of your hair. So if you're trying to, if you're trying to get a 60-inch weave, well, that's different. I'm not talking about that. But if you're trying to get basic products to maintain your hair, to have healthy hair, etc., if you stand out there with no mask, because see, in the state of Michigan, based upon Governor Gretchen Whitmer's executive order, when you go into public spaces like that, enclosed spaces, stores, grocery stores, etc., everybody has to have a mask. Okay, wear a mask, not just have one. Actually wear it covering your mouth and your nose, not wear it underneath your chin. Okay, so I'm not beating up on sisters trying to do basic care like that. I'm not beating up on that. Beating up on them for that. Okay, so all right. Let's see what people are saying on Facebook. Follow me on my Facebook fan page, The African History Network, The African History Network, and my YouTube channel, Michael Imhotep, IMHOTEP, right? I can't wait to go back to the barber because I'm tired of cutting my own hair. I save money, but so what? I can't fade my own hair, right? So I just cut it all off. All right, so we've got Erica, we've got Greg Osborne, we got Lakeisha. on Facebook, they're laughing at what I said. On YouTube, we've got Fly Girl and YHM and who's this Jamaican Angel and Cosmically Made. Just a few of the people watching on my YouTube channel, Michael Imhotep, IMHOTEP. Everybody share this broadcast on your social media platforms as well. Invite your friends to tune in also. Okay. All right. So let me go back to some updates because we only have 2 hours here on 9:10 a.m. Superstation. 25 minutes are already gone. Okay. So all right, so we see cities, we see states opening back up, especially states that have Republican governors. And a lot of this is going to be premature. A lot of this is going to cause the spread of coronavirus to spread even more. Okay. And Donald Trump is really trying to open back up the country because each week more and more devastating news comes out. And he's trying to win a re-election. This is what this is about. This is putting profit over people. This is putting his presidency over the safety of people. That's what this is about. So we see that protesters gathered in the capitals of Kentucky, Oregon, and Florida, following other demonstrations this week in Illinois, California, Michigan. NBCnews.com has a list of the states that have opened and the ones that are still shut down. The name of that article, because we have it pulled up here. What is that? Reopening America. Some states are starting to reopen and lift lockdowns, even as the battle against the coronavirus rages on. Reopening America. Some states are starting to reopen and lift lockdowns, even as the battle against the coronavirus rages on. It's been 6 weeks since the first stay-at-home orders were announced in the United States amid the coronavirus pandemic that has ravaged the country, with more than 1 million known cases and more than 60,000 deaths. And we'll give you the official count here from Johns Hopkins University in just a minute also. I'll pull that up. Nearly 2 months since the social distancing measures began, certain states are slowly starting to reopen their economies. Now, a lot of these Republican states that are trying to reopen, like the state of Georgia under Brian Kemp, who stole the election from Stacey Abrams, right? A lot of these Republican states do not meet the guidelines from the White House stating that you have to have 14 days of declining cases of coronavirus, but they're opening up anyway. As of this week, Georgia Governor Brian Kemp allowed some non-essential businesses to reopen, including restaurants, gyms, nail salons, and movie theaters. Now, this past weekend on MSNBC, especially on Reverend Al Sharpton's show, Mayor Keisha Lance Bottoms talked about how she was really upset with Brian Kemp, Governor Kemp, over reopening the state, and she's talked about how that's going to jeopardize the lives of African Americans, Hispanics. Black people stay at home as much as possible. I understand going to the grocery store, things like that. Don't go to the movie theater. Don't go to the gym. All this stuff. If you go to the restaurant, do carry out. This stuff right here. And there was a good segment on Politics Nation on Sunday, Reverend Al Sharpton's show on MSNBC. He has Zelina Maxwell on, and this other sister, Erin Haynes. Erin Haynes wrote this article, and I made a note of it, as I do a lot of articles, because I'm going to, it's from the Washington Post, and I'm going to read it. The name of this article is Black Activists and Officials See a Major Threat in South's Plan to Reopen. I'm going to pull this up here because I didn't get a chance to pull it up before the show. And her name is Erin Haynes, I think it is. But this deals with how, back in March, I talked about how African Americans and Hispanics are often deemed as essential workers in various capacities, whether it's working for delivery services like FedEx, whether it's working in grocery stores, etc. So even in the midst of a shutdown, they are working for essential businesses. And then we just saw also this week that Donald Trump using the Defense Production Act is forcing meat producers, meat packing plants to stay open. And this jeopardizes the lives of African Americans and others, because there has been a huge outbreak in these meat packing plants of people being diagnosed with coronavirus. Okay. And so when you reopen prematurely, a lot of these businesses are businesses where African Americans work. And what we're seeing, and as I reported last week, and Vice.com had an article dealing with this, many states, the governors are saying, if your place of work, if you are getting unemployment right now, you filed for unemployment in the last 6 weeks, you're getting unemployment right now. If your job reopens, if you don't go back to your job, because say you fear for your life, because you fear for coronavirus, things like this, if you don't go back to your job, okay, you're not going to be eligible for unemployment anymore because they're offering your job back. You don't want to go back because you say, well, wait a second, we had 5 people who died from coronavirus at the workplace. We had 10, 15 people who caught coronavirus. I don't want to go back because I think I'm going to be next. So all this is coming together when we deal with opening these states too soon, because people want to focus on profit over people. Black activists and officials see a major threat in South's plan to reopen. This is by Erin Haynes, Errin, Erin Haynes, Haines. She wrote this for WashingtonPost.com. This is from April 28th, 2020. As Southern governors, and JT, let me know if you have any callers. As Southern governors are reopening the region this week, Black activists are joining with local and federal lawmakers to sound the alarm about what they see as a looming threat to the Black Belt. They say the mostly white male Republicans who were reluctant to close their states but are now eager to reopen are effectively issuing a, quote, death sentence, end quote, for millions of African Americans who have been disproportionately impacted both economically and medically by the novel coronavirus. Black Voters Matter co-founder Latasha Brown, and Latasha Brown has been interviewed numerous times by Roland Martin on Roland Martin Unfiltered. She's doing a lot of good work, her and her group Black Voters Matter. She said, quote, he's willing to risk us at any cost, end quote. He's willing to risk us at any cost, end quote. Referring to Georgia Governor Bryan stole the election from Stacey Abrams Kemp, who announced a reopening of the state beginning this past Friday, with plans to officially let the state's stay-at-home order expire on Thursday. She said, quote, it's clear that he doesn't give a expletive starting with a D about the citizens of this state, and that he feels like some folks are disposable. The first thing that came to my mind was these people are trying to kill us, end quote, said Latasha Brown, co-founder of Black Voters Matter. She's an Alabama native who now lives in Georgia. Now, public health officials have said reopening states to commerce and freer movement comes with risks, particularly without robust testing and contact tracing. There's still a lack of tests. I know Donald Trump said over a month ago, anybody who wants a test and get a test. That's not true. Now, probably if you, Sean P. Diddy Combs, right? If he wanted a test and didn't have any symptoms, he and everybody at Bad Boy Records could probably get a test. But we saw a sister that worked for a hospital here in Detroit. She was African American. She had symptoms. She tried to get a test 4 times, couldn't get a test, and end up dying of COVID-19. So a coalition of mostly African-American female activists led by Black Voters Matter, the Southern Rural Black Women's Initiative, the A. Philip Randolph Institute, and the Highlander Research and Education Center launched a petition to the governors of Georgia, Tennessee, Mississippi, Alabama, South Carolina, and Florida, pleading with them to extend their stay-at-home orders. Reopening now, quote, especially for cash poor communities and communities of color, is irresponsible and a death sentence for many of us, end quote, they wrote. This is why you hear me talk about the importance of not just the presidential race and Congress, but also state legislature and the governor. Because the governors have a lot of power. This is why you have to have a governor who exhibits good, who makes good decisions, who uses good judgment, who looks at the science, who will not ignore the pleas of people in a city like, oh, let's pick any city randomly. Let's say like Flint, Michigan, who say this water smells funny. And their pleas are largely ignored, especially by the governor at the time, Governor Snyder. They are responsible for people's lives. So a coalition of mostly African-American female activists led by Black Voters Matter, the Southern Rural Black Women's Initiative, the A. Philip Randolph Institute, and the Highlander Research and Education Center launched a petition to the governors of Georgia, Tennessee, Mississippi, Alabama, South Carolina, and Florida. These were all pretty much former Confederate states also, just to, may not have anything to do with it that all these states had a history of slavery and, sided with the South and committed treason against the Union and took up arms to maintain slavery because it was essential to their way of life. That may not have nothing to do with any of this, but hey, I'll just throw that in there. So reopening now, quote, especially for cash poor communities and communities of color, is irresponsible and a death sentence for many of us, end quote, they wrote. Now, the groups are also calling on the states to create safety plans for essential workers who are disproportionately, their word, minorities and females, specifically African Americans and also Hispanics. Before reopening, they want the groups are calling on these states to create a safety plan for essential workers before reopening. And they also want the states to report coronavirus data by race and county to increase unemployment support and to expand Medicaid. Okay. The petition reads, quote, our neighbors, relatives, members of our faith communities, and co-workers are being put in an impossible position that prioritizes profit over people, end quote, the petition reads. Now, despite being only 13% of the U.S. population, really about 14% of the U.S. population, African Americans make up 30% of the deaths from the pandemic nationwide, okay? 30% of the deaths from the pandemic. Now, also keep in mind, right? Thanks to Donald Trump and Republicans, less African Americans have health insurance today than they did when President Obama left the White House. Thanks to, Donald Trump, because they have been taking away the subsidies for the Affordable Health Care Act. And Republicans have been trying to repeal the Affordable Health Care Act going back at least probably 7 or 8 years now, 7 or 8 years, something like that. And the U.S. Supreme Court is going to take up the case after the November 3rd, 2020 election. Because Donald Trump's Department of Justice is trying to repeal the entire Affordable Health Care Act, including pre-existing conditions. What the hell do you have to lose? And the Affordable Health Care Act gave health care to 3 million non-elderly African Americans who did not already have health care. So the crisis is not only one of public health, but also of economics, as African American unemployment is historically at least double that of whites, and minorities work the majority of low wage frontline jobs and are the least likely to be able to work from home. So about 33% of Americans can work from home. And let's see here. Back in March, I talked about this coronavirus to impact low wage Black workers the most. Finance.yahoo.com had this reporting. This is from March 12th, 2020. I've been studying coronavirus since the end of January. So while people were talking about, Oprah and Gail and Jada Pinkett Smith and Snoop Dogg and Kobe, and Jada said that what Snoop said about what Gail said to Lisa Leslie about what Kobe did and all that stuff. I was studying coronavirus going back to the end of January. So only a third of the workforce in the country is able to work from home, according to the Bureau of Labor Statistics, BLS. Go to bls.gov. That's the Bureau of Labor Statistics. That's the Labor Department. Nationwide, more than 32 million workers don't have access to paid sick leave. According to the Bureau of Labor Statistics, 92% of higher wage earners received paid sick time compared to their lower income counterparts. Only 31% of workers with salaries in the bottom 10% have this benefit. Now, let's see here. Only 48% of workers in the leisure and hospitality industry have access to paid sick leave. Only 31% of workers with salaries in the bottom 10% have paid sick leave. I'm trying to see, did they break this down by race? Among the working poor, African-American workers will be harmed the most. According to the Bureau of Labor Statistics, African-American and Hispanic workers are more than twice as likely to earn poverty-level wages compared to their white counterparts. Roughly 8% of African-American and Hispanic workers earn wages below poverty level compared to just 4% of white workers. Okay, so read this entire article. This is from finance.yahoo.com, finance.yahoo.com. This is from March 12th, 2020, coronavirus to impact low-wage Black workers the most. Then blackenterprise.com also has an article from March 13th, 2020. The coronavirus will hit low-wage Black workers the hardest. Let's see. Okay. Let me know how much time we have before the break, JT. Five minutes before the break. Okay, do we have any callers? Okay. Okay, phone line's been on and off all day. Calling number is area code 313-778-7600. 313-778-7600 is the call-in number. If you have a question or comment, and hopefully you can get through. If you can't get through, post your comments here on social media. We'll try to get them addressed also. Okay. All right. So check out that article from finance.yahoo.com. Also look at this extensive article here from the Washington Post by Aaron Haynes for the Washington Post. Let's go back to it a little more. Despite only being 14% of the U.S. population, African Americans make up 30% of the deaths from the coronavirus pandemic. The crisis is not only one of public health, but also of economics, as African American unemployment is historically at least double that of whites and minorities. And minorities work the majority of low-wage frontline jobs and are the least likely to be able to work from home. The states of Florida, Alabama, and Tennessee are also set to lift their stay-at-home orders on Thursday. Mississippi began its reopening process this past Monday. North Carolina's order was set to expire on April 29th, but Democratic Governor Roy Cooper extended the state's order until May 8th. Louisiana's Democratic Governor John Bel Edwards on Monday extended the state's stay-at-home order from Thursday to May 15th. We know also Governor Gretchen Whitmer has extended the state of emergency here in the state of Michigan to May 28th. Okay. Read the article from freep.com, Detroit Free Press. Whitmer orders Michigan theaters, bars to remain closed until May 28th. It gives more information in there also. Okay. All right. So Donald Trump met with Florida Governor Ron DeSantis at the White House this past Tuesday, where the two discussed their respective responses to the crisis. Governor Ron DeSantis, who was one of the last governors to issue a stay-at-home order, defended his approach as tailored and measured. Now, keep in mind, if Andrew Gillum had become the governor of Florida, it'd have been a different story. And he would have been much more responsible in the way he handled this. He would have closed the beaches also. So DeSantis has not provided details on how he plans to proceed. Now, southern states were among the last to issue stay-at-home orders, with most shuttering the first week of April, days after much of the country closed schools, businesses, churches, and public spaces. Nearly 6 in 10 African Americans live in the South, the largest region in the country and home to half of the 10 most populous states for African Americans. Let me repeat this, because see, this is once again an example of how elections have consequences and how the decisions that elected officials make impact the lives of everybody, but especially African Americans. Nearly 6 in 10 African Americans live in the South, the largest region in the country and home to half of the 10 most populous states of African Americans: Florida, Texas, Georgia, North Carolina, and Virginia. Florida, Texas, Georgia, North Carolina, Virginia. I think they were all former Confederate states also. 3 of the 4 cities with the highest percentage of African Americans are Southern, including Jackson, Mississippi, Miami Gardens, Florida, and Birmingham, Alabama, where nearly 80% of all residents are African American. Some Southern governors have continued to stick to their decisions, including Governor Brian Kemp of Georgia, who just a couple weeks ago said he just found out that you could be asymptomatic and not have, you can have coronavirus, not exhibit symptoms, but infect other people. He said that was a game changer. He said he just found that out last 24 hours. This is about 2 weeks ago. The Center for Disease Control is down the street from his office, but he didn't know that. Okay, yeah. Okay, yeah, you expect us to believe that. All right, whatever. You listen to the African History Network show right here on 910 a.m. the Superstation of Future Radio. I'm Michael Imhotep. We'll be back in a few minutes. Okay, guys, we're on commercial break. We'll be back in a few minutes. How's everybody doing? Share this broadcast on your Facebook page. Invite your friends to tune in. We got Kim on Facebook. We've got Kim Robinson. We've got Donna, Mark, Cliff. How's everybody doing? And then on YouTube, we've got we got a bunch of people on YouTube. Everybody share this on YouTube. We've got Corey, Baba, Antonio, Fly Girl, Ronald, Naki, YHM, Dr. B Buccaneer, just a few of the people on Facebook. Hey, if you like this type of information, also you could donate to the African History Network, paypal.me/TheAHNShow, paypal.me/TheAHNShow through PayPal, or through Cash App, $TheAHNShow through Cash App, $TheAHNShow through Cash App. That helps us keep doing the research, stay on the air, finance our Sunday night show, etc. Okay. All right. Let's see. We'll be back from break in a couple minutes here. Okay, how you doing, SB? SB on Facebook, Fern on Facebook also. So I guess beginning of June, I'll be back in the studios at 9:10 a.m. the Superstation. Okay. African American business owners, email us at customerservice@africanhistorynetwork.com. We'll let you know how you can advertise with the African History Network. Theprofitroom.com, offer is a stock market trading and education company. They have mentorship programs that are designed for beginners. They teach individuals just like yourself how to create generational wealth through trading and investing in the financial markets. They can teach you about stocks, options, futures, foreign exchange market. Their specialty is day trading and providing one-on-one mentorship. They have a class starting up very soon also. Visit their website, theprofitroom.com, theprofitroom.com for more information. Now, a lot of people are want to get into shape. Spring is here. The weather's getting nicer. People been quarantined. They've been gaining weight. Their children have been gaining weight, going back and forth to the refrigerator, and you want to work out. Well, SheRanHerselfFit.com. SheRanHerselfFit.com can help you with that. Their mission is to inspire and motivate women to make healthy lifestyle choices. She Ran Herself Fit is a brand that promotes women living a healthy lifestyle. Now, the founder of She Ran Herself Fit, her name is Felicia. Felicia lost over 200 pounds by changing her diet and running. Running may not be your inspiration, but find out what is yours. Visit SheRanHerselfFit.com right now for workout apparel that you can purchase at SheRanHerselfFit.com. Okay, we're coming back from the break. Welcome back to the African History Network show right here on 910 AM, the Superstation of Future Radio. We're already in our second hour. This time goes back quickly. By quickly here. So I guess in the beginning of June, if Governor Gretchen Whitmer removes the stay-at-home order, I guess I'll be back in the studios at 910 AM, the Superstation. Beginning of June, we'll see. But in the meantime, I'll be right here in the studio. So you see me throughout the week here. This works out fine for me. I already have the equipment here. I got 2 laptops. Just bought a new mixer. So this works out better. So this is fine for me. But hey, you know, I like being in the studio also. Okay, so right before the break, we're giving an update on what's going on with coronavirus as well. And I was talking about this excellent article from the Washington Post written by Aaron Haynes, Haines, Aaron Haynes for the Washington Post. Black activists and officials see a major threat in South's plans to reopen. Many African-American leaders, we talked about this on last week's show, but many African-American leaders, mayors, et cetera, who are in Republican states where these Republican governors are quickly opening back up. They were late to shut down the states and very quick to open back up the states. And many African-American leaders, Mayor Keisha Lance Bottoms, other African-American mayors, activists, et cetera, are saying you're jeopardizing African-Americans' lives and the lives of Hispanics as well, who are largely frontline workers when you do this, okay? Mayor Keisha Lance Bottoms is telling people in Atlanta to stay home as much as possible. All right, so let's go back to this article for a few more minutes, and then I'm going to hit quickly some of these other topics, and then I want to get into the miniseries Self-Made on Netflix, okay? Because I finally watched it this past week. Inspired by the life of Madam C.J. Walker. I took 4 pages of notes on this, so I'm going to go through, break this stuff down. You don't want to miss that. Okay, so despite being only 13% of the U.S. population, African Americans make up 30% of the deaths from coronavirus. The crisis is not only one of public health, but also of economics, as African-American unemployment is historically at least double that of whites, and minorities work the majority of low-wage frontline jobs and are the least likely to be able to work from home. Let's see here. Okay, so nearly 6 in 10 African Americans live in the South, the largest region in the country and home to half of the 10 most populous states for African Americans: Florida, Texas, Georgia, North Carolina, and Virginia. 3 of the 4 cities with the highest percentage of African Americans are Southern, including Jackson, Mississippi, Miami Gardens, Florida, and Birmingham, Alabama, where nearly 80% of all residents are Black. Nearly 80% of all residents are Black. Now, some Southern governors have continued to stick to their decisions, including Governor Brian Kemp of the great state of Georgia, who clashed with Donald Trump after the president publicly admonished Brian Kemp for opening his state too early. The overwhelming majority of the country has not been tested for coronavirus. There's only about maybe 6 million people have been tested out of 330 million people. Okay. And this nonsense, no, we're not close to having 5 million people tested a day. This nonsense Donald Trump keeps putting out. He keeps trying to use happy talk to restart the economy. Okay. No, you ain't close to 5 million people per day being tested. The overwhelming majority of the country has not been tested for coronavirus, and the South appears to have among the lowest rates in the country. Without widespread testing, Americans, particularly the ones dying most from the disease, lack an accurate picture of the threat, said Camara Jones, C-A-M-A-R-A, Camara Jones, I should say, who's an epidemiologist and family physician whose work focuses on the impacts of racism on the nation's health. Camara Jones said, quote, we're blinding ourselves to how many infections there are, end quote. Now, African-American lawmakers, including much of the Congressional Black Caucus and African-American mayors in cities with large African-American populations, such as Atlanta, Jackson, Mississippi, Albany, Georgia, and New Orleans, have also been outspoken about the need for increased testing and economic support. Among the most vocal has been Atlanta Mayor Keisha Lance Bottoms, who has been active on social media and in interviews about urging residents of the capital of Georgia, which is Atlanta, to stay at home. Her stance drew racist backlash last week when Mayor Bottoms received an anonymous text calling her the N-word. They said they called her the N-word and said something, shut up and open back up Atlanta. She said, I was not elected mayor to be a coward. Mayor Keisha Lance Bottoms told the Washington Post during a virtual event on Tuesday. She said, quote, I don't think there's something larger at play. She said, I do think there's something larger at play. But the facts are the facts, and the data is the data. It is impacting African-American communities at a higher rate. And Atlanta has a very diverse population with many of the underlying conditions we've talked about, end quote. So the activists are also working to hold regular community briefings to inform African Americans of the ongoing threat to the pandemic and to issue guidance for how they can protect themselves from the virus and find economic resources to help those unable to work during the crisis. Okay, so read the rest of this article because I don't have time to get through the rest of this. This is a good article here from Washington Post written by Aaron Haynes. Aaron Haynes is an editor at large for the 19th, covering the 2020 election. Name of this article once again, Black activists and officials see a major threat in South's plans to reopen. Okay, so check out that article. All right. Okay, let's move quickly here. Let's see. I was giving you an update on what's going on. When we look at Johns Hopkins University, we see that total confirmed cases of coronavirus worldwide, 3.5 million. We see that Donald Trump has made America number one. America's still number one. 1,157,000 cases. U.S. is far superior to anybody else. Closest one behind us is Spain, 217,000. You know, he said he's going to make America great again, and America's number one. When we look at total deaths worldwide, we see 247,000 deaths total worldwide. Also, when we look at testing, the total number tested in the U.S. is now at 7 million. Okay, it was 6 million, a little more than 6 million. Now it's at 7 million total tested in the U.S. When we look at deaths in the U.S., we know that the U.S. is now right at about 67,000 deaths. Yeah, a little more than 67,000 deaths. So a few days ago, Donald Trump was saying he was expecting 50,000 to 60,000 deaths. And what was he going to say when it hits 100,000? 80, 90, 100,000. What was he going to say then? And then also we see that the number of recovered in the U.S. is at a little more than 180,000 who have recovered in the US. Okay. So we have 1.1 million confirmed cases of coronavirus in the US. We see a little more than 180,000 have recovered. And then worldwide, we're looking at a little more than 3.5 million reported cases worldwide, and about 1.1 million worldwide have recovered. Um, I still see this discrepancy where worldwide we see maybe was about 30% have recovered worldwide, where in the US uh, it's a lot less than that. What we're looking at again, we're looking at 1.1 million, and so we're looking at maybe about 10% in the US have recovered. Was worldwide, we're looking at somewhere around 30%. Okay. All right. So let's continue here. We saw also this past week the unemployment numbers came out, and 3.8 million more people filed for unemployment. Two good articles dealing with this. WashingtonPost.com. 3.8 million Americans sought jobless benefits last week, extending pandemic's grip on the national workforce. Okay, 3.8 million Americans sought jobless benefits last week, extending pandemic's grip on the national workforce. So the outbreak and subsequent recession have wiped away all jobs created since the Great Recession. The economists estimate the national unemployment rate sits between 15 and 20%, compared to about 25% at the peak of the Great Depression. Now, this coming Friday, the job numbers come out. It's going to be horrific. Thursday, the numbers will come out about 8:30 a.m., which talk about the number of people who filed for unemployment the previous week. The first Friday of each month, okay, the job numbers come out from the Labor Department, which talk about the number of jobs created or the number of jobs in total lost. Okay, it's going to be horrific. We saw the when the April report came out for the month of March, 701,000 jobs were lost the previous month, ending 113 consecutive months of private sector job growth. 113 consecutive months of private sector job growth ended with the unstable genius. It started going back to 2010. Who was president in 2010? The black guy. 113 consecutive months of private sector job growth ended because of a mishandling of this pandemic, which led to an economic catastrophe. You go back and you look at Herbert Hoover, who was a one-term president, won the presidency in 1928. Herbert Hoover mishandled the Great Depression, which set it up for President Roosevelt to become president. Roosevelt was president for 4 terms. Herbert Hoover mishandled the economic disaster known as the Great Depression. So for comparison, 4.4 million people applied for benefits for the week ending April 18th, and 30.3 million people have sought benefits in the past 6 weeks alone. That figure represents roughly 1 in 5 American workers. There is no precedent for figures like this in modern American history. At first, national attention focused on the unprecedented wave of layoffs tied to restaurants and other non-essential businesses, said Tara Sinclair, an economist at George Washington University and senior fellow of the Indeed hiring lab. But it quickly became clear that many more industries were going to be hit by the downturn, even in the midst of a global pandemic. Tara Sinclair pointed to recent job losses in the healthcare industry, as surgeries and other elective procedures are canceled in large numbers. So the past couple of weeks, I've been talking about the reporting from the Washington Post going back to April 9th, which talked about how, because many hospitals, like hospitals right here in Detroit and Metro Detroit, have stopped doing elective surgeries. Elective surgeries generate a lot of money for the hospital. So because they have stopped doing elective surgeries, they're hurting for money. They're trying to get funding from federal government as part of the various coronavirus packages. But now we're seeing layoffs at various hospitals here in Metro Detroit and across the country. We're seeing layoffs as well. So we see job losses in the healthcare industry as surgeries and other elective procedures are canceled in large numbers. Tara Sinclair said, no job is safe. During normal times, a few 100,000 people might seek unemployment benefits on any given week, but millions of Americans have filed claims each week for more than a month. Millions of Americans have filed claims each week for more than a month. This is unprecedented in like modern times. This has overwhelmed state processing centers and expedited the debate in Washington about how to respond to the economic turmoil. Many Americans have stopped paying their rent and other bills, and economists are predicting any recovery will stretch well into 2020 and possibly beyond. During normal times, the economy will add a few million jobs each year. It could take many years for the economy to add back the 30 million jobs lost in the past 6 weeks. It took the past 6 weeks have wiped out the previous 10 years of job gains in 6 weeks. 313-778-7600 is the call-in number if you have a question or comment. See, so this is what happens when you have an idiot in the White House. This is what happens when you have somebody who doesn't understand the economy. This is what happens when you have somebody that doesn't read their presidential daily briefings, don't look at the warning signs, declare war on the scientists. This is an example of what happens. So if we go and look at April 27, 2020, reporting from the Washington Post, President's Intelligent Briefing Book repeatedly cited virus threat. For weeks, the Presidential Daily Briefing, the PDB, as the report is known, traced the virus's spread around the globe, made clear that China was suppressing information about the contagion's transmittability and lethal toll, and raised the prospect of dire political and economic consequences. But the alarms appear to have failed to register with Donald Trump, who routinely skips reading the Presidential Daily Briefing and has at times shown little patience for even the oral summary he takes 2 or 3 times per week, according to officials who spoke on the condition of anonymity to discuss classified material. The advisories being relayed by, now what's interesting is this, I think it was this past week in one of the coronavirus daily briefings, Donald Trump was asked about this, about the presidential daily briefing. Did it mention coronavirus? Were you warned about coronavirus? He said he wasn't sure. He said he had to go back and review the information. You don't remember if you received warnings? He received multiple warnings in January and February in his presidential daily briefings. Reason that right you don't remember because you didn't read them. We're coming up on a break here in a couple minutes. How much time we have before the break, JT? So the advisories, 3 minutes, the advisories being relayed by U.S. spy agencies were part of a broader collection of worrisome signals that came during a period now regarded by many public health officials and other experts as a squandered opportunity to contain the outbreak. A squandered opportunity to contain the outbreak. As of this past Monday, more than 55,000 people in the United States had died of COVID-19. Now it's 67,000. The frequency with which the coronavirus was mentioned in the presidential daily briefing has not been previously reported, and U.S. officials said it reflected a level of attention comparable to periods when analysis have been tracking active terrorism threats, overseas conflicts, or other rapidly developing security issues. A White House spokesman disputed the characterization that Trump was slow to respond to the virus threat. Quote, President Trump rose to fight the crisis head on by taking early, aggressive, historic action to protect the health, wealth, and well-being of the American people, end quote, said spokesman Hogan Gidley. Hogan Gidley. I don't know where the hell Hogan Gidley gonna find another job after this. He's just lost all respect and credibility, basically. Okay, to put nonsense out like this. I ain't even gonna read the rest of this BS from Hogan Gidley. The Office of the Director of National Intelligence is responsible for the presidential daily briefing. In response to questions about the repeated mentions of coronavirus, a DNI official said, quote, the detail of this is not true, end quote. The official declined to explain or elaborate. U.S. officials emphasized that the presidential daily briefing reference to the virus included comprehensive articles on aspects of the global outbreak, but also smaller digest items meant to keep Trump and senior administration officials updated on the course of the contagion. Versions of the presidential daily briefing are also shared with cabinet secretaries and other ranking U.S. officials. I think that includes Chair of the Senate Intelligence, or was it not Chair? Richard Burr. I think it includes Richard Burr also, Senator Richard Burr, Republican, who was at the Tar Heel Club in North Carolina, warning the people in the Tar Heel Club about the pandemic. Is going to be on. He says it's going to be basically on the level like the Spanish flu pandemic in 1918, while he was in public downplaying it. One official said that by mid to late January, the coronavirus was being mentioned more frequently, either as one of the report's core articles or in what is known as an executive update, and that it almost certainly called to Trump's attention, and that it was almost certainly called to Trump's attention orally. Read the rest of this article. This is from April 27th, 2020. Washington Post. President's intelligent briefing book repeatedly cited virus threat. What we have here is a failure to communicate. Listen to the African History Network show right here on 9:10 a.m. Superstation Future Radio. When we come back, we'll talk about the miniseries Self-Made, inspired by the life of Madam C.J. Walker. We'll be back in a few minutes. Okay. All right, guys, we're on commercial break. How's everybody doing? We got Kenneth, Cliff, Leah Wallace, Donna, just a few of the people watching on Facebook. Everybody share this broadcast on your social media platforms. Invite your friends to tune in also, okay? And then on New York police brutally racially mistreated the black guys because they wasn't practicing 6 feet. I missed that. Post an article or name of an article, Lady Ace. I may have seen some on social. Was it 2 officers that had one guy on the ground? I saw an article, something dealing with that. I'm not sure where it was though. Okay. All right. Okay, just a minute here. Let me get ready for this next segment. Okay, we'll talk about Joe Biden for a minute here. We'll give you this article. We'll talk a little bit about Diddy, and then I need to jump into, let's see here. We've got black businesses being shut out from, the Paycheck Protection Program. We'll talk a little bit about that. Then I'm going to get into self-made. We'll probably go past the 11 o'clock hour on social media. We'll lose 9:10 a.m. the Superstation at the top of the hour. And then we'll stay on my social media platforms here. Okay. Let's see where we're coming back from the break in just a minute here. Stand by, everybody. I had to get ready for this next segment. Welcome back to the African History Network show, right? Welcome back to the African History Network show right here on 9:10 a.m. the Superstation, the Future Radio. Hey, I'm your host, Brother Michael Imhotep. It is Sunday, May 3rd, 2020. And we are live. The calling number is 313-778-7600. 313-778-7600 is the calling number if you have a question or comment. Shout out to everybody who's watching on our Facebook fan page, The African History Network. We have Leisha and we have Erica and Carolyn and Cliff. Just a few people watching us. Follow us on our Facebook fan page, The African History Network. The African History Network on Facebook. That's my fan page, The African History Network. And then also on my personal page, Michael Imhotep, IMHOTEP on YouTube. Michael Imhotep, IMHOTEP on YouTube. Okay. All right. So in the first hour, we were talking about 30.3 million Americans have filed for unemployment in the past 6 weeks. We know this past week, 3.8 million more Americans filed for unemployment. Also, we talked some about, there was a good article from the Washington Post that dealt with how a lot of these states in the South that have Republican governors that are opening back up prematurely, they will be jeopardizing the lives of African Americans as well as Hispanics. Many African Americans and Hispanics are frontline workers. Washington Post has an article: Black activists and officials see a major threat in South's plans to reopen. Black activists and officials see a major threat in South's plans to reopen. Okay, let's see here. Okay, so we know the second round of the Paycheck Protection Program funding has been released. We know $60 billion has been set aside for minority and other undeserved borrowers, African Americans, Hispanics, etc., and women. Okay, their word minority, not mine. People jump in and say, "Oh, why you say minority?" That's what the article says. That's what it says. That's the language that's used, minority. Okay. We look at the reporting from NBCnews.com from April 29th, 2020. Why are so many Black-owned small businesses shut out of the Paycheck Protection Program loans? So many African-American-owned small businesses are having trouble accessing the government's emergency Paycheck Protection Program loans, despite a fresh round of CARES Act funding that includes $60 billion in set-asides for minority and other underserved borrowers. The coronavirus loan program, executed by the Small Business Administration, offers up to $10 million in loans per customer that can turn into grants that don't have to be repaid if certain rules are followed, such as using most of it for payroll plus rent and utilities. And I saw a number of articles this past week dealing with how African-American owned businesses are having a hard time accessing these funds, especially the first round. Some with the second round, but the money from the second round just came out. So the verdict isn't completely in on that yet. So the program has been marred by administrative glitches and controversy since its hasty midnight launch on April 2nd. Funds effectively ran out in minutes as well-resourced companies, with the help of their bankers, muscled their way to the front, while mom and pop businesses were left wondering whether they even had a place in line. And Washington Post had an article from this past week that dealt with how corporations, big businesses ended up getting, publicly traded companies, things like that. They ended up getting, I forgot how much money they got, but they ended up getting, I think, something like $1 billion or $100 billion in money. I forgot the exact number. Let me see. I think I printed that article up. We'll see here. Let me see. Just we'll see. I thought I printed that one up here, but I'll try to find that article. I've got so many of them. Let me see something here just a second. But yeah, it dealt with how corporations, really the ones who the funds were not for, ended up getting a lot of that money. Okay. And we'll try to, I'll try to find an article and post the link here on the thread of the broadcast. All right, so let's see here. All right. So despite good intentions, the government's emergency relief program leaves many feeling left behind. African-American business leaders say the small business program needs to do more to reach underserved borrowers. Now, Ron Busby is the president of the U.S. Black Chamber, the U.S. Black Chambers, Ron Busby. And the U.S. Black Chambers advocates for African-American businesses and African-American chambers of commerce. He said, quote, I hear a lot about making America great again. In order to have a great America, that there has to be a great Black America. In order to have a great America, there has to be a great Black America. In order to have that, we need great Black businesses. We need access to capital, Ron Busby said. Now, despite good intentions, the government's emergency relief program leaves many feeling left behind. While the new set-asides are one step, some program rules leave out a large number of community development funding institutions that could participate. The government maintains a searchable database of certified institutions. They have a link here for that. We'll post a link to this article from NBCnews.com. Okay. While the new set-asides are one step, some program rules leave out a large number of community development funding institutions that could participate. There also needs to be funding for training and education in how to apply for the programs. Now, I agree with that. This is something else Ron Busby said. I agree with that. And one thing that African-American chambers of commerce have to do across the country, I know some are doing this, okay? I think more need to do this. This has to be one of the number one things they're focused on, is helping African-American owned businesses have their paperwork in order so that they will have the paperwork, the tax returns, all the required paperwork reports to be able to apply for these funds. And then also help them through the process to be able to get these funds as well. So Baltimore Cafe owner Terrence Dickinson is desperately calling everyone he knows for some kind of help with his relief applications. He's down to his last few $100s in the personal savings account he's been using to pay his staff. He has tried Bank of America, with which he has a business checking account, his personal bank, politicians who have used his cafe for campaign events, and even the Maryland Lieutenant Governor's office. He said, the financial industry has shown me no love for 20 years. The financial industry has shown me no love for 20 years, he said, of his challenges qualifying for traditional bank loans. But he feels this program should be different. Okay. He said, it's our money. It's taxpayer money. That is true. It's a reallocation of taxpayer dollars. Politics is the legal distribution of scarce wealth, power, and resources, and the writing of laws, statutes, ordinances, amendments, and treaties, their adoption, interpretation, and enforcement. And those who are elected to office, and politics impacts every aspect of our lives. Therefore, those who are elected into office and those who are appointed to political office, right, pass laws and policies that impact every aspect of our lives. This is why in 2016, when you had people saying, we're not going to vote for president, we're just going to do economic empowerment and build 5-story buildings and invest in the stock market. I said, that's good, but politics and policies and laws shape the economy that your businesses operate within. Policies and laws regulate your business. So now we have governors who shut down your business. Elections have consequences. And when you see myself teach, or Professor James Small or Dr. Leonard Jeffries, we talk about the pyramid principle, and they're two of my teachers. The foundation of that pyramid is African history and culture. And it's African history and culture that influences the other two sides of the pyramid, your economic empowerment and political empowerment. They all work together. Last week, when I talked about principles of political self-defense, understanding how laws and policies impact the economic conditions of African Americans. And we talked about the policies of Joe Biden and Bernie Sanders and Mike Bloomberg, as well as Donald Trump, because Donald Trump's policies are destroying African American owned businesses. Not to mention Black people dying, but just destroying African American owned businesses. We go back and look at the 35-day partial government shutdown, how that was destructive to African American owned businesses, how it harmed African American farmers. All this, we look at the Department of Agriculture, Sonny Perdue, who's the Secretary of Agriculture. Go look at the interviews that Roland Martin has done with John Wesley Boyd Jr. John Wesley Boyd Jr. heads up the Black Farmers Associations, the National Black Farmers Association. And he talks about how they have been mistreated by this Department of Agriculture. 45,000 African-American farmers. All these policies impact our lives. They impact African-American farmers. They shape the economy that African-American owned businesses have to operate within. So a lot of these businesses are shut down. A lot of these African-American businesses are not going to survive. A lot of these white businesses are not going to survive. If the white business is not going to survive, what do you think is going to happen to our businesses? At his Tara Cafe, T-E-R-R-A, Tara Cafe, a community-focused restaurant offering Southern comfort and soul food, along with an arts and event space, Terrence Dickinson has been trying to pivot with the times since the coronavirus pandemic took hold. He's increased delivery operations and tried to get the hang of Instagram and social media marketing, but sales have still plummeted. Now, I was over at the Turkey Grill today. I went to go see my man George over at the Turkey Grill. I saw an article, I think it was the Detroit Free Press. Google this Turkey Grill, the Turkey Grill. And it was dealing with how the owner, George, I forgot George's last name, but he's offering coronavirus testing to all of his employees because he was shut down for a couple of weeks. I went by and talked to him today. Hadn't seen George in about 20 years. And he told me that they had been shut down for a couple of weeks, but they opened back up. They're in Highland Park. A lot of people know about the Turkey Grill in Highland Park. But let me see. There was an article from Detroit Free Press or something that talked about this. That's what prompted me to stop by and see him, see how he's doing. But yeah, this is even African-American restaurants that are still open. When you talk to the owners, and I have, dude, they're just doing a fraction of the business that they were doing because, for instance, so like here in the state of Michigan, as well as other states, they're only doing carryouts, okay? No in-restaurant dining. And that's reducing their revenue. But as he explained to me today, he said the bills don't stop coming. You still have the bills coming, but you have less revenue. Even when you shut down, you still have some bills coming in, okay? So, so this is crazy. So my heart goes out to business owners, especially African-American business owners dealing with this. Okay, that was Detroit News that had that article. Detroit restaurant Turkey Grill testing. The Detroit eatery protects customers by testing all employees for COVID-19. Okay, this is from DetroitNews.com from April 30th, 2020, written by Jasmine Barmore. Okay, one small business in Detroit is leading the way in testing the employees for coronavirus. The Turkey Grill has had all 17 of the workers at the restaurant tested. The restaurant was singled out by Mayor Mike Duggan as one frontline operation that is getting it right as the city tries to contain the outbreak and get back to some semblance of normal or normality. George Lyles, L-Y-L-E-S, owner of the restaurant at 8290 Woodward in the New Center District, was listening when Mayor Mike Duggan invited healthcare and restaurant workers to get tested for free at the Michigan State Fairgrounds, regardless if they had symptoms or not. Okay, so the owner of the to-go spot specializing in Mississippi and Louisiana cooking registered his business with the testing site. Okay, Lyles contacted the call center. They give it in the article, they give the number for the call center, 313-230-0505, where a representative evaluated if the business was essential and verified that they are open. The Turkey Grill was then assigned an ID number for each employee to give when they got to the testing site. So I heard Mayor Duggan talk about this in his daily press conference, his daily coronavirus press conference. I heard him talk about this. So George Lyles said that within 48 hours, all his staff had been tested, including himself. He said none of his staff gave him pushback. All 17 tests came back negative. Okay. All right. So read the rest of this article. This is here at the Detroit News. And they have the number that you can call. I think they're still doing the testing. I remember Mayor Mike Duggan talking about the frontline businesses. Free coronavirus testing is being offered for like the grocery stores and things like this for the employees. Okay. So this is something that the city of Detroit is doing to combat coronavirus. Okay, also read the article from NBCnews.com. NBCnews.com. Why are so many black-owned small businesses shut out of PPP loans? Why are so many black-owned small businesses shut out of PPP loans, as Paycheck Protection Program loans? Okay, that's at NBCnews.com. Then Black Enterprise had a good article because we know the NAACP and NAACP, National Urban League, National Action Network, Reverend Al Sharpton. You can listen to Keeping It Real with Reverend Al Sharpton Monday through Friday, 1 p.m. to 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, right here on 9:10 a.m. the Superstation, WFDF in Detroit. Reverend Al Sharpton has been talking about a lot how African-American owned businesses have largely been shut out of this money, of these loans. BlackEnterprise.com reported on April 29th, 2020, NAACP President Derrick Johnson demands federal government do more to help Black businesses. Since the spread of COVID-19 or the novel coronavirus took over the globe, there has been a race in the medical community to find a vaccine and ultimately a cure for the disease. One scientist is coming forward claiming that he had, let's see, is this the right article here? Oh, you know what? It printed the wrong, okay, we'll get this up. Hold on. That's what happened. It printed the wrong article. That's what happened. Okay, we'll pull this up from Black Enterprise here in just a minute. Then let's see. Let me get to this other, because in the next hour we'll get to Madam C.J. Walker here. So those keep watching me on my social media platforms, because we're going to go into overtime on my social media platforms when we're done broadcasting on 9:10 a.m. the Superstation. Let me give you this article here. I ain't going to spend a whole lot of time on this. Let's see, NBCnews.com. Let's see, Tara Reade, who's made accusations, whose story has changed some. Where is that article here? Just a second, I had it. Okay. Dealing with Joe Biden. Let's look at this article from NBC. I've seen a number of different reporting on this, a number of different interviews. So Joe Biden was interviewed this past Friday on Morning Joe. Categorically denied the charges, said it did not happen. Then he was also interviewed on Politics Nation, Reverend Al Sharpton. You can watch those interviews at msnbc.com. NBC News is reporting Biden accuser Tara Reade, not sure what complaint she claims was filed with Senate. Okay. Tara Reade, a former staffer, accusing former Vice President Joe Biden of sexual assault. First it was sexual harassment, now sexual assault. Specified Saturday that she's quote unquote not sure what wording she might have used in the paper complaint. She says she filed with a Senate Personnel Office in 1993. She said, quote, I filed a complaint regarding sexual harassment, and retaliation, but I am not sure what explicit words on that intake form until we see it again, end quote, she told NBC News in a text message on Saturday. Tara Reade has said the complaint, if it's found, would include the sexual assault allegation she came forward with in March. She told the Associated Press in an interview on Friday, quote, the main word used, and I know I did not use sexual harassment, I used uncomfortable, and I remember retaliation, end quote. Former Vice President Joe Biden has insisted that no record exists, but nonetheless, he sent a letter Friday asking the Secretary of the Senate to, quote, take or direct whatever steps are necessary, end quote, to determine where any such personnel record would exist and to release to the public any documents it finds related to any allegation Tara Reade might have made. Quote, it is not true. I am saying unequivocally, it never happened, and it didn't. Joe Biden said in the interview on MSNBC's Morning Joe with Mika Brzezinski, he said, quote, it never happened, end quote. Now, Joe Biden also reiterated his unequivocal denial Friday night at a virtual fundraiser with Obama administration veterans. Quote, your trust and faith has always meant a great deal to me, end quote, he said. So first, let me say unequivocally, this claim is simply not true. It did not happen, end quote. Let's see here. A number of former Obama administration and campaign officials have also defended Joe Biden, with some pointing out that no evidence of such allegations was uncovered as part of the rigorous vetting process Biden went through to be chosen as vice president for the ticket in 2008. David Axelrod wrote an article for CNN talking about this. There were 10 attorneys. That investigated Biden's background, his history, his